Why don't you take care of that weed field? Little brother? The moment my sister said that with a sneer, the funeral hall froze. The smell of incense mixed with the fishy scent of soup, and their laughter rang in my ears. In the will, my name was written wrong. Kim Jun-ho became Kim Juno. Just one letter, but it broke my heart. The unfairness choked me inside. I didn't know then that beneath that land, my father's voice was waiting. Why he hid it so deeply I'll tell you now. You're listening to Silver Story Tree, where the voices of life's late chapters gently bloom again. Subscribe, like, and turn on the bell to hear more heartfelt stories that grow with time. I could hear raindrops tapping against the window. The family waiting room at the funeral home was filled with a heavy silence. It had been 3 days since my father passed away, and today was the day his will would be revealed. When the lawyer walked in, the air in the room grew even heavier. I was holding a coffee cup in my hand. The once warm coffee had already grown cold. My older sister Sun-young and second sister Mi-jong exchanged glances as they watched the lawyer. The lawyer opened the envelope. The sound of paper unfolding created an unsettling tension. These were my father's final words written on paper. I couldn't recall any specific memories with my father. All that remained in my memory was the image of a strong adult watching over me from behind. He didn't speak much, but he was someone who sacrificed everything for his family. The lawyer's voice filled the room. The lawyer announced that he would now read the will of Kim Byung-soo, prepared during his lifetime. First, to his eldest daughter Kim Sun-young. He bequeathed a building in Gangnam's Cheongdam-dong and $50 million in cash. My sister's eyes widened. To his second daughter Kim Mi-jung, he left 3 apartments in Bundang and $30 million in cash. And to his youngest son. The lawyer squinted slightly. To Kim Jun-ho, he bequeathed a plot of land in Namwon City, South Jeolla Province. The room suddenly fell silent. I could feel my sister's eyes on me. My name is Kim Jun-ho, not Jun-oh. The fact that my father had written my name incorrectly pierced my heart. My oldest sister couldn't hold back her laughter. Sister Sun-young remarked that father was quite funny, even getting the youngest's name wrong. Sister Mi-jong also burst into laughter. Jun-oh, just take care of that weed-filled land. Dad's sense of humor is really something else. The lawyer handed me the envelope. It contained the address plot 43-2, Boon-ri, Sané-myeon, Namwon City, Jeollanam-do. There was a note with a land registry map that read, 369. Cut the weeds 3 times. I had no idea what it meant. My throat tightened. I recalled the times I had spent with my father. Though he spoke little, he had secretly supported me when I was getting my driver's license. And always brought medicine when I was sick. And this is how it ends? As I left the room, I could hear my sisters laughing behind my back. They were already planning how to use the inherited wealth. When I arrived home, I sat at the dining table. The dinner my wife had prepared had already grown cold. The oil was floating on top of the now cold soup. My wife asked how the will reading went. I picked up a cold spoon. Father couldn't even remember my name correctly, I told her. My sisters got hundreds of millions, while I got a patch of weeds. My wife looked at me in surprise. That can't be right, she said. Your father always cared for you, his youngest. Just then, my phone rang. It was my uncle. Uncle told me, Jun-ho, go see that land in person. That's what your father would want. I couldn't help but laugh. What's there to see? It's just a field of weeds. My uncle sighed. Still, come take a look. There must be a reason why your name was written incorrectly. I looked at the envelope again, muttering as I read the small note in the corner. 369, cut the weeds 3 times. What could this possibly mean? Father, is this really all? My voice trembled. Outside, the rain began to fall harder. The sound of paper crumpling in my grip tore at my heart. My sister's laughter echoed in my ears. That night, my father's note, cut the weeds 3 times, remained an unsolved riddle. The sound of train wheels on the tracks filled my ears. On the KTX bound for Namwon, rain was falling outside the window. The water droplets sliding down the glass were as blurry as my thoughts. In my hand, I clutched the land registry map my father had left. It had been 3 days since I spoke with my uncle when I decided I needed to see this weed-filled land for myself. I'm not sure exactly what I was expecting. I just wanted to understand my father's final message. I arrived at Namwan station. The rain had stopped, but the air was still humid. When I showed the address to the taxi driver, he tilted his head in confusion. The driver told me this neighborhood had been rumored for development for years. But it was still just fields and farmland. He asked what business I had there. My answer was simple. It's land my father left me. The taxi drove along bumpy country roads before reaching a small village. The driver pointed to a hill in the distance. I would need to walk the rest of the way, he said. I walked along the mud-soaked path. Not wearing boots, my dress shoes quickly became covered in mud. Checking the land registry map and GPS alternately, I walked for about 30 minutes. Finally, I arrived at the land. The scene before me was exactly as I had imagined. Weeds grown up to my knees swayed in the wind. Only the sound of crickets and distant dog barking testified to any life here. In the middle of the land was a small burial mound. The headstone was covered in moss. I slowly approached and wiped away the moss to reveal the inscription. It read, "Tomb of Kim Jun-oh." A chill ran through my entire body. The typo my father had written in his will, Kim Jun-oh, was also engraved on the headstone. This wasn't a coincidence. It was clearly intentional. I knelt before the headstone and paid my respects. Weeds grew abundantly around the grave. Suddenly, I remembered my father's note. 369, cut the weeds 3 times. Did it mean to clean the grave in March, June, and September? Unable to just leave, I looked around. Strangely, the ground around the grave seemed firmer than elsewhere, as if someone had compacted it. I began digging around the grave with a small shovel I had brought from the car. I felt guilty, but if this was my father's wish, I needed to follow it. After digging for a while, I heard a metallic clink. Surprised, I dug more carefully. A rust-covered metal box appeared. It was a small box, about the size of my palm. With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside was a USB drive, an old bankbook, and a yellowed letter. I unfolded the letter. My father's awkward handwriting was visible. Cut the weeds 3 times. Then the path will open. His handwriting was just as I remembered, firm and unwavering. Opening the bankbook, I saw it labeled as a Namwan Agricultural Cooperative Trust account. The account holder was Kim Byung-soo, my father's name. I couldn't understand what it meant. After cleaning my hands, I took out my phone and called my uncle. After explaining the situation, my uncle remained silent for a moment. My uncle explained that the account was an emergency fund my father had managed for a long time. It was a trust in my name. I looked up at the sky with blank eyes. Sunlight began to shine through the clouds. The wind blew, making the weeds rustle. I looked back at the grave. The name, Kim Jun-oh. Why had my father spelled my name incorrectly? And what was on this USB drive? I took out my laptop from my pocket and connected the USB. A file appeared on the screen. It was an MP3 file. When I pressed play, there was a beep, and then a familiar voice came through. It was my father's voice. "Jun-ho, are you listening?" In that moment, a chill ran down my spine. My deceased father's voice was vividly ringing in my ears. Along with the sound of the wind, my father's voice flowed from the speakers. Since the laptop speaker was small, I had to put my ear close to hear it. My father's voice was a bit rough, but clear. My father spoke. "Jun-ho, if you're listening to this recording, I'm already gone from this world." My heart raced. I sat beside the headstone, hugging my knees as I listened to the recording. My father continued, "Money goes up, responsibility goes down. This has been our family's long-standing principle." In the recording, my father coughed occasionally. It seemed he had made the recording when he was quite ill. "Misspelling your name was intentional. Change it to the correct character. Then the path will open." My hands trembled. There was also a file called Trust PDF on the USB. When I opened it, it was a document titled Will Addendum Conditional Trust. It looked like a legal document. The document clearly had my name, Kim Jun-ho, written on it. My father knew my name. So why had he written Kim Jun-oh on the will and headstone? The recording continued. Plot 43-2 may seem worthless on the surface. But after cleaning the grave 3 times in March, June, and September, everything will become clear. My father's voice was growing weaker. It must have been difficult for him to make this final recording. My father said his final words. Your sisters received money, but you received responsibility. This is proof that you received the greatest inheritance. The recording ended. I sat there for a long while. My mind was in turmoil. I needed to organize the messages my father had left. I got up and gathered my things. I put the box, USB, and bankbook in my bag. I headed back to town. The first place I went was the Namwan Agricultural Cooperative. I showed the bankbook to the bank clerk. The employee checked the computer and tilted her head in confusion. The clerk explained that this was a trust account. It could only be accessed after confirmation of 3 memorial services. Following the account holder's death. I asked what she meant by memorial service confirmation. How was that verified? The clerk explained that I would need to submit verification. Photos of grave maintenance in March, June, and September, along with grave management confirmation documents. Now I began to understand my father's note. 369, cut the weeds 3 times. It meant fulfilling the conditions through grave maintenance. My father had planned all of this. Leaving the bank, I headed to the township office. I sought out the person in charge with my land registry map. An official named Oh Hae-jung greeted me. Ms. Oh examined the map. After looking at her computer for a moment, she had a surprised expression. Ms. Oh informed me that this plot was scheduled for road incorporation. Did I not know? I couldn't believe my ears. Road incorporation? Ms. Oh turned her screen to show me. On the computer screen, there was a map with a red line drawn across it. That line passed directly through our land. Ms. Oh continued to explain. This area was scheduled for a new bypass road. The compensation process would begin soon. My mind went blank. The land I thought was just a field of weeds was actually a key section for road compensation. The official asked if the landowner's name was correct. The system showed Kim Jun-oh. At that moment, I felt like I could hear my father's voice again. Change it to the correct character. So that's what it meant. I took a deep breath. I told her that we needed to correct that name. My actual name is Kim Jun-ho. Ms. Oh nodded. She said the correction application was possible. With a family relationship certificate and ID. As I left the township office, I checked the map again. Our land was exactly in the center of the planned road. It was as if someone had deliberately planned it. My phone rang. It was my oldest sister. Sister Sun-young asked when we would hold father's memorial service. They would reserve the venue. I was momentarily speechless. Should I tell my sisters about this? It didn't seem right just yet. I simply replied that I would contact them when the date was set. After hanging up, I looked up at the sky. The sun was shining through the clouds. It felt as if my father was watching over me. Now I understood. This wasn't just a simple patch of weeds. It was my father's true inheritance, and a kind of test for my sisters. Something hot rose in my throat. This wasn't just evidence, it was the key to revealing family truth. The sound of a car engine faded away, bringing a peaceful quiet. Sitting in my small motel room in downtown Namwan, I organized the information I had discovered today. Outside the window, only the streetlights illuminated the darkness. I recorded all the information I had found on my laptop. My father's recording, the will addendum, the trust account, and the road incorporation plans. I was certain that none of this was coincidence. I resolved to reveal my father's true inheritance. This wasn't simply about land. It was about family truth and my father's final wishes. I woke up early the next morning. I had a plan. I needed to collect all the evidence and make everything legally certain. First, I headed to the township office. Ms. Oh Hae-jung from yesterday greeted me warmly. Ms. Oh asked if I was ready for the name correction application. I presented my family relationship certificate, resident registration, and ID. My name, Kim Jun-ho, was clearly written on them. The official examined the documents and said the name correction application was possible. However, the land ownership transfer process would need to be conducted separately. I filled out the correction application. From Kim Jun-oh to Kim Jun-ho, a simple name change, but this was just the beginning. Leaving the township office, I headed straight to the registry office. I received a list of documents needed for the ownership transfer. I would need the will, family relationship certificate, and inheritance confirmation certificate. Next was the agricultural cooperative. I wanted more detailed information about the trust account. The manager explained that this account was a conditional trust, which would be accessible after verification of grave maintenance. In March, June, and September. The first verification would be possible starting in March. It was exactly as my father had said. 369, 3 grave cleanings were the condition. Finally, I sought out a construction company to get information about the road project. Fortunately, there was a field office nearby. A deputy named Choi Do-hong greeted me. When I explained my situation, he showed interest. Mr. Choi confirmed that the area was indeed scheduled for bypass construction. The actual compensation process would begin early next year. I asked when this plan had first been established. Mr. Choi checked his computer. The initial plans had existed for 3 years. However, the specific route was finalized 1 year ago. My heart raced. 1 year ago was before my father passed away. He knew about the value of this land. I copied and recorded all the materials. I needed evidence with legal validity. Returning to the motel, I organized all the information. The will addendum, road incorporation documents, and the name correction application. These were legally valid evidence. I called my oldest sister. My heart was beating rapidly. Sister Sun-young answered. Junho, what's going on? I spoke calmly. Sister, construction will soon begin on my land. Sister Sun-young couldn't hold back her laughter. What? That weed patch? What could possibly be done there? I didn't tell her anything else. I just said she should know. My sister scoffed. Why does it matter if you know? You can't do anything with that land anyway. I hung up and took a deep breath. It wasn't time yet. When all the evidence was secured and the legal procedures completed, then I would reveal the truth. I connected the USB to my computer and made several copies. I uploaded one to the cloud and sent one by email. This was to keep the evidence safe. I called my uncle. I explained the entire situation. My uncle asked if I had ever thought my father disliked me. My throat tightened. Honestly, I had felt that way at times. It always seemed like he favored my sisters. My uncle spoke gently. Byung-soo always said that the youngest must continue the path. He believed you were the most responsible. My uncle's words touched my heart. My father had trusted me. After ending the call, I opened my laptop again. I listened to my father's recording again. Now the meaning of his words came to me more clearly. The next morning, I visited my father's grave again. Kneeling before the headstone, I made a promise. Father, I will definitely reveal the truth. I'll do as you wished. As I was cleaning the headstone, I heard that metallic sound from behind it again. I tried to see what was causing it, but couldn't find anything. Now all preparations were complete. Next would be the family meeting and the time to reveal the truth. Everyone would learn the true meaning of the inheritance my father had left. The sound of the door opening marked my return to my soul home. I had completed my week-long visit to Namwon and secured all the evidence. My wife greeted me at the entrance. My wife asked if it had been difficult. How did everything turn out? As I set down my bags, I answered that everything was now clear. I would call a family meeting. My wife looked surprised but didn't ask further. She simply prepared a warm meal for me. The home-cooked meal tasted especially delicious after so long. The next day, I contacted my sisters. I asked to meet over the weekend. I said I had something important to discuss. Initially reluctant, they eventually agreed when our uncle offered to join us. Saturday afternoon, I reserved a private room at a quiet cafe in Gangnam. I arrived early to set up my laptop and projector. I had prepared all the evidence. My sisters arrived. Sister Sun-young came in fashionable attire, while Sister Mi-jong looked tired. Our uncle followed shortly after. Sister Sun-young asked why I had suddenly called this meeting. I answered calmly. It's about father's will. Sister Mi-jong rolled her eyes. Isn't that already settled? The will was revealed and everything was resolved. Slowly opening my laptop, I said no, it wasn't over. I had visited Namwon. My sister's expressions changed. There was curiosity mixed with slight uneasiness. I took out the USB. Would you like to hear father's voice right now? Sister Sun-young scoffed. What are you talking about? Father is gone. Silently, I connected the USB and turned on the speaker. My father's voice filled the room. Junho, if you're listening to this recording, I'm already gone from this world. Money goes up, responsibility goes down. This has been our family's long-standing principle. My sisters' faces turned pale. Especially Sister Sun-young, who seemed shocked. The recording continued. Misspelling your name was intentional. Change it to the correct character. Then the path will open. My youngest, this land is a path. Give the money to your sisters. Tears welled in Sister Mi-jong's eyes. Sister Sun-young still looked disbelieving. Sister Sun-young shouted that this was a fabrication. That I had created it. Calmly, I turned on the projector. I showed a file with my father's handwritten signature. The date was later than the will. My uncle spoke. Sun-young, this is real. I know your father's handwriting better than anyone. Next, I showed the road incorporation plan and expected compensation details. I also showed the corrected land registry with my name. I stood up and guided Ms. Oh Hae-jung in. I had contacted her in advance to request her attendance today. Ms. Oh explained that the registry effectiveness had been recognized, and the will addendum on the USB also had legal effect. The owner correction was complete and registered under the name of Kim Jun-ho. A sigh escaped from Sister Sun-young's lips. Sister Mi-jong quietly wiped away tears. I continued slowly. This wasn't just a field of weeds. It was my father's plan. The land is a key section of a planned bypass road. I had also contacted Mr. Choi in advance to attend. He explained the compensation plan in detail. Mr. Choi said that when the compensation process begins early next year, I would receive more than double the market value. Additional compensation was also expected because of the location's importance. Sister Mi-jong asked tearfully if we had been wrong. If father had left something truly precious to me. I nodded. But this isn't simply about money. My father's message is more important. I displayed a page of my father's notes on the projector. In his handwriting, it read, if the path is blocked, the family is blocked. Sister Sun-young's face reddened. Sister Mi-jong was now crying audibly. My uncle said that Byung-soo always valued family. Entrusting responsibility to the youngest was because he believed I was the most mature. The meeting room fell into heavy silence. Outside the window, the evening sunset was fading. It felt as if my father was watching our family. Sister Mi-jong spoke first. Junho, I'm sorry. We were too hasty. Sister Sun-young remained silent, but there was a look of regret in her eyes too. Ms. Oh and Mr. Choi left. Now only our family remained. I added one final comment. Father loved all of us. He simply left me responsibility instead of money. That evening, the three of us siblings shared a meal together. For the first time in a long while. There wasn't much conversation, but reconciliation filled the air. Morning sunlight streamed through the window. After yesterday's family meeting, my sisters had returned to their homes. But my uncle stayed at our house. The sound of dishes clinking in the kitchen announced the start of the day. When I went to the living room, my uncle was preparing breakfast with my wife. It was a peaceful scene I hadn't witnessed in a long time. My uncle asked if I had slept well and how I was feeling today. I replied that I was fine. My heart actually felt lighter. Sitting at the table, I took a spoonful of warm soup. My uncle pulled out an old notebook from his bag. My uncle said this was something my father had left. He had been keeping it for a long time. I took the notebook. The cover read, Family Path. I carefully turned the pages. Inside the notebook was a blueprint drawn in my father's handwriting. It looked like a map of the Namwon land and surrounding area, with markings showing where a road would pass through. My uncle explained that my father had predicted this area would become a road long ago. He was friends with the village head. Turning the page, I found a sentence written in my father's handwriting, when this road opens, our family will reconnect. Tears welled up, blurring the writing. I tried to wipe my eyes, but the tears kept flowing. My uncle continued. Byung-soo had been planning this for several years before his passing. He always wanted the family to be united. I asked why my father hadn't told me directly. My uncle smiled warmly. Your father was someone who showed rather than told. And he wanted to test your sincerity. My phone rang. It was my oldest sister, Sun-young. Sister Sun-young asked if we could meet. Mi-jong would join too. I set a time and ended the call. I explained the situation to my uncle. My uncle nodded. Go ahead. Your sisters now understand. 2 hours later, I met my sisters at a cafe overlooking the Han River. Sister Sun-young wore lighter makeup than usual, and Sister Mi-jong's eyes were swollen. Sister Sun-young spoke first. We didn't understand father's wishes. Sister Mi-jong added, if only I hadn't acted that way. Junho, I'm truly sorry. Their sincere apologies touched my heart. I told them it was okay, that it was all in the past now. Sister Sun-young asked what I planned to do now. I answered slowly, I'll do as father wished. The road will be built, and our family will come together again. Sister Mi-jong reached out her hand. We'll help too. Let's do this together from now on. The 3 siblings joined hands after a long time. Outside the window, the waves of the Han River sparkled. On the train back to Namwon, my uncle's words echoed in my mind. My uncle had said that Byung-soo mentioned it wasn't abandonment but entrusting. Now I understood the meaning of those words. Father hadn't abandoned me, he had entrusted me with the most important responsibility. Arriving in Namwon, I headed straight to the township office. I submitted an application to correct the headstone inscription to Ms. O. Ms. O said it would be processed as early as next week. I thanked her and headed to the grave. It started to rain, but I didn't stop walking. When I reached the grave, the rain fell harder. Wiping the rain-soaked headstone, I murmured, Father, now I understand. What you left me wasn't land but a path. A path to bring our family back together. A week later, the corrected headstone was erected. Now it bore the name, Kim Jun-ho, instead of Kim Jun-oh. For the first time, the 3 siblings visited the grave together. Sister Sun-young brought flowers, Sister Mi-jong brought fruit. And I brought my father's favorite soju. Sister Sun-young asked what exactly was being constructed on this land. Just as I was about to answer, a construction worker approached from a distance. The worker said this was a protected access road area. Survey teams would be coming soon. The 3 siblings looked at each other. Our father's plan was becoming reality. The sound of retrieving letters from the mailbox echoed in the entryway. 2 months after completing the first grave cleaning in March, the news I had been waiting for finally arrived. The official envelope was marked, Namwon City Road Construction Department. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. It was a compensation notice. When I checked the amount, it took my breath away. It was much larger than expected. When I showed it to my wife, she also looked surprised. She said she never expected such a large amount. I fell into thought for a moment. I felt this money wasn't just for me, but for our entire family. I immediately called my sisters. I told them about the compensation and asked to meet. 2 days later, the 3 siblings met at a small restaurant in Namwon that our father used to frequent. I placed the compensation notice on the table. Sister Sun-young couldn't close her mouth when she saw the figure. Is this all real? I nodded. Yes, this is the actual compensation. And I've decided how to use this money. Sister Mi-jong asked curiously what I had decided. I slowly unfolded the documents I had prepared. It was a compensation distribution plan. I began to explain. Part of this compensation will be used to pay off your debts. Mi-jong, you mentioned your husband has a debt of $600,000, right? And Sun-young, I heard you took out a loan to expand your business. My 2 sisters couldn't hide their surprise. Especially Sister Mi-jong, who had tears in her eyes. Sister Mi-jong said I didn't need to do that. The money was mine. I shook my head. No, this is father's money, and it belongs to our entire family. Remember father's message? Money goes up, responsibility goes down. Sister Sun-young quietly asked what I would do with the rest. I explained that I had set up a grave management trust. The annual interest would maintain the grave, and the remaining amount would be used for scholarships in Namwon. Sister Mi-jong said in a moved voice that father would be so happy if he knew. After finishing our meal, we headed to the township office. I explained the compensation usage plan to Ms. O and submitted the related documents. Ms. O was amazed. She said this was the first time she had seen such a case, and asked if she could introduce it in the local newspaper. I thought about it for a moment but politely declined. I said I wanted this to remain our family's story. The next day, a local newspaper reporter contacted me. He wanted to write an article titled, Family's True Heart Revealed Through Will Error. The reporter asked for an interview, saying it could touch many people's hearts. I politely declined. I want this to remain a story known only to us three. I'm sorry. In June, it was time for the second grave cleaning. This time, my sisters joined me. It was the first time the three siblings cleaned the grave together. Sister Sun-young said with a shy smile that this was her first time doing something like this. Sister Mi-jong was also awkwardly cutting weeds. Still, with the three of us working together, the task was quickly completed. After finishing the grave cleaning, we sat in front of the grave and shared a packed lunch. Laughter spread through the scent of fresh cut grass. Sister Sun-young suddenly asked how father could have planned all this. He was truly remarkable. Sister Mi-jong answered that it was father's wisdom. He wanted us to be united again. I nodded. Father always looked far into the future. He worried about what would become of us. As the sun began to set, the three siblings stood up together. On our way down, we heard a final click sound from a crack in the headstone. It sounded like a nail finding its place. Sister Sun-young asked if I heard something. I shook my head. It's nothing, just the sound of the wind. Looking back as we descended the mountain, I saw the grave was now neatly arranged, with survey stakes planted around it. It was a sign that road construction was beginning. Sister Mi-jong said we should definitely come together again in September. Sister Sun-young nodded. Let's do this together every year from now on. In that moment, my heart was filled with warm peace. I thought this must be exactly what father had wanted. I awoke to the sound of raindrops tapping on the window. Today was the day for our final September grave cleaning. I had worried about the rain, but by our departure time, it had stopped. Early in the morning, Sister Sun-young and Sister Mi-jong came to my house. In the car heading to Namwon, we shared many stories, reflecting on the past 6 months. I said, that day at the funeral, your laughter changed my life. But in the end, I was the one who laughed. Sister Sun-young bowed her head in shame. We were truly inconsiderate. I'm sorry, Junho. Sister Mi-jong added that she had been blinded by greed then, only seeing the money. I waved my hand. That's all in the past now. If anything, that incident brought us closer together. Arriving in Namwon, we headed straight to the grave. Around the now clean grave site, construction was in full swing. The outline of the road was gradually taking shape. After completing the third grave cleaning, I ran my hand over the inscription beneath the headstone. The path continues. My father's final message. Sister Sun-young said we should come together again next year. It seems to have become our new tradition. Sister Mi-jong nodded. Let's stay together like this for life. After finishing the grave cleaning, we stopped by the nearby agricultural cooperative. Once we completed the final verification, the employee smiled brightly. The employee congratulated us. The trust account was now open. Would we like to check it? The three siblings looked at the screen together. Surprisingly, there was a significant amount in the account. It was money our father had saved over many years. The employee explained that this account had been specially designated by Mr. Kim Byung-soo for his 3 children jointly. All 3 would need to agree for any withdrawal. Sister Sun-young and Sister Mi-jong looked at me in surprise. Our father wanted the 3 siblings to be united until the very end. Leaving the bank, we went to meet our uncle. He greeted us with a bright smile. Our uncle said, Byung-soo, it's done now. Your children are united again. We also stopped by the township office to report on the situation. Ms. O greeted us warmly. Ms. O said this was the first time she had seen such a will. It was heartwarming, a will that brings a family together. I nodded, saying father hadn't abandoned me but entrusted me. He entrusted our family to me. After the grave cleaning, the 3 siblings stopped at the soup restaurant our father used to frequent. With a bowl of warm soup in front of each of us, we shared old stories. Sister Sun-young asked if I would continue working as a delivery driver. Smiling, I answered yes. I would continue because it's work I enjoy. Sister Mi-jong marveled that I hadn't changed despite coming into so much money. No wonder father had trusted me. After eating, we looked out at the nearly completed road beyond the grave. Some sections already had cars slowly passing through. Sister Sun-young said the road was like our family's story. Sister Mi-jong added that it was rough at first, but eventually became a path connecting everyone. I nodded too. That's what father must have wanted for us to reconnect. On the drive back to Seoul, the 3 siblings had many conversations. We talked about childhood stories, memories with father, and plans for the future. Back home, I told my wife everything that had happened today. The opening of the trust account, reconciliation with my sisters, and the road that had opened beyond the grave. My wife asked how I felt now. Sipping warm tea, I answered that I felt at peace. Everything had turned out as father wished. Lying in bed, looking up at the ceiling, I thought about it all. Initially, I believed my father had abandoned me. But in reality, he had entrusted me with the greatest responsibility. What about you? If your name had been misspelled in a will, would you have let it go? Thanks to that small doubt, I discovered my family's truth and rebuilt broken relationships. My father's last words echoed in my ears. If the path is blocked, the family is blocked. Now I truly understood that meaning. In the end, what my father left me wasn't land, but a path. A path to reunite our family. And that path will continue into the future. Everyone, have you ever felt your heart break from unfairness or loneliness? Today, I realized that what I once thought was abandonment was actually trust. With time, even our wounds reveal their reasons. It's not too late, we can still open the path in our hearts again. Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your likes and subscriptions mean great comfort and strength to me. And if someone you know needs this story, please share it with them. Thank you for listening. I wish you good health and a warm heart today.